Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today I'm here to share with you my depth year 3-month check-in. So I thought we would just kind of get together and I would share with you how my depth year is going so far now that we are 3 months into 2020. So I've been keeping a depth year journal and I've been tracking, my notes about depth year for each month. I've been tracking things like my studies, my purchases, my things that I've struggled with, and things that have really been successful for me. Not only so that I can go back and kind of see where I have been, and so I can share that with you. So I thought we would just start and basically go month by month over the last 3 months. So in January, I feel like my depth year started off in a pretty good way. I was really motivated to do this depth year. Not that I'm not motivated now, it's just I've kind of settled, I think, more into a little bit of a routine with it. Whereas at the start of January, it was something that it was new and exciting. And it is something that I actually planned like late fall, early winter of 2019. So kind of having that plan and then having to pretty much wait for January to start my depth year. Not that I think you have to wait. I think that you can start a depth year anytime, but that's just kind of how it worked into my plan. So I really wanted to make sure that I focused on that. But I had all of that build up. So when January finally hit, I was like, yes, I'm so excited to do this. And so I had that kind of burst of energy and I was really excited to do things and dive into things, which was kind of the whole point of my depth year. It wasn't so much about like not buying things. It was more about, of course, diving into the things that I already have, which I talked about in my depth year plan video, which I will link in the description box below. Although I have definitely tried to limit my purchases, that's not like 100% my focus for my depth year. My focus is more on really diving deep into those things that I want to explore and learn. And so I feel that January started off really well. I really dived into my studies during January. So I had kind of collected a whole bunch of books that I wanted to read, and I actually worked my way through quite a few of them. I think I might have mentioned the books in my January reflections, so if you've heard them before, I apologize, but I'll just go through the list really quick here. I read Reveal, which is a book by the same author as the Mary Magdalene Revealed, and it was, I believe, her prior book, her first book, and it was kind of about her spiritual journey, and that was a really interesting one. I also read The Ray of the Rose, which was an interesting book that kind of intermingled the history of the rosary and what it's used for and how it has been used historically, and then of course pre-Christian use of the idea of a rosary or prayer beads. And it was kind of intermingled with the author's own personal stories, so that was pretty interesting. I think I took a lot of notes in that book. I have purchased my own rosary after kind of reading that book and being inspired by it. I do have mallow beads as well, but I kind of wanted to tie in that Mother Mary energy because that was something that I was beginning to explore, or I should say explore again, because, having come from a pseudo-Christian background, sort of, I was familiar with Mary, but now I'm approaching it from a totally different perspective, so it's been really interesting. I also read The Elements of the Goddess by Caitlin Matthews, I do believe. I should have checked. And that, I think it's an out-of-print book, but I was able to get it on eBay for, relatively inexpensive. And that was a really interesting, very detailed, very in-depth book about the idea of goddesses as kind of one overall energy, and then breaking down into the different aspects and temples, which she calls them temples in the book. So that was really fascinating. I have a ton of notes from that one. And there is kind of like a building your own Temple of Light exercise that I want to do. I did also start the Book of Thoth by Aleister Crowley, which is something that I kind of struggled with a little bit. Like parts of it, there's pure genius and then there's total freaking madness. So I mean, that's just my personal opinion. That's just how I took it, but it does make it a bit difficult to read. So I'm kind of having to read that one slowly. And I've decided in terms of my deck study, I'm going to be studying the Tabula Mundi, which is the Thoth system. So I wanted to read the original book by Aleister Crowley and learn the system that way as well. And I've decided that I think for me, that's going to be more of a summer, maybe fall project, because I have a lot of things that I'm doing right now already. And the Book of Thoth is a slow read for me. So I'm still working my way through it. I started in January. I'm still not done, still working my way through it. So I think that that's kind of going to be a slow roll project that maybe goes all throughout 2020. So for deck purchases, I actually did quite well in January. I only purchased 2 decks. One was the Animals Divine Tarot, and that is a out of print deck right now. And I happened to find it on eBay for like a steal. And it was even new and still like wrapped in its plastic. Like the deck came in plastic, right? You never find that with an out of print deck. So it happened to come across my feed. I think I just happened to be right place, right time. So I did jump on that and I did go ahead and purchase that one. I also purchased the Llewellyn Tarot, a backup copy of it. For one, because I just wanted to have a backup copy of it. And 2, because I kind of wanted to check out the new cardstock. I'd heard that the Llewellyn Tarot had new cardstock. So I kind of rationalized that one. I did use an Amazon gift certificate to buy that one. So I guess financially it doesn't really count as a purchase. But in terms of, being really mindful about what decks I bring into my practice, totally counts as a purchase for me. It is a backup copy. I've opened it to check out the cardstock, and then I've put it away because the Llewellyn Tarot is like the one deck, one of a very small handful of decks that I would be pretty heartbroken if anything happened to it. It's like my comfort deck, although I do have to say that the cardstock is totally different than the edition I have, and it feels different, and it doesn't feel like my deck, so I'm not sure I would actually be happy with it. I'm on the hunt for the edition that I have, which is the 10th edition, and it has a different cardstock. So I'm on a hunt to find a backup of that and then let the other one go. Because I just can't kind of bring myself to use it because it has totally different cardstock and it doesn't feel right. Not that I love Llewellyn's new cardstock, so I'm not complaining about that, but it doesn't feel like my Llewellyn, if that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about my struggles that I had throughout January. My biggest struggle in January in terms of my depth year was actually kind of coming up with a wellness practice and a workout routine. So my wellness practice has been really hit and miss over the last few years. Part of that is due to I was sick through a lot of the early part of 2019, and so any practices that I had put into place kind of went out the window during that time, and I've just really struggled to get back on track with that. And that kind of process that struggle just really continued into January, and I honestly gave up on it a little bit in January. I was just like, I don't even know where to go with that, what to do with it. I don't know what I need. So I kind of gave up and I was like, I'll set that aside and I'll deal with that later. So that was really my biggest struggle when it came to my depth year and my personal practices as a whole. My biggest success, I think, in January was that I did actually start into those studies of the different goddess energies that I really wanted to learn about, and I started my Mother Mary studies, which was really wonderful, and I'm still continuing that. So I feel like my studies really got off to a really great start. My wellness practice, not so much. So moving into February, my depth year studies got totally derailed by the fact that I kind of went on a planner obsession thing. I got really interested in happy planners and trying to reestablish a new planning routine. And I think that was partially encouraged by the fact that I was really struggling with my wellness practice. And what started that was that I found, or I saw a video, I think it was a video, where somebody was using the Happy Planner Wellness Planner. It's a whole planner designed with the idea of planning your wellness practice. So, it has areas for workouts, and I think they call it nourishment, and, notes and journaling space and reflections. And so that was kind of, I think, what started me on the path of the Happy Planner, which is something that I'd used before, but I didn't do it in a creative way, so it really didn't work for me. And then I went overboard. I bought way too much Happy Planner stuff. Like, I went from buying a crap ton of tarot decks to a crap ton of planner supplies. So that was a little bit of a falling off the wagon there. I bought planners upon planners. I bought notebooks. I bought stickers. I bought all kinds of stuff. So that was that kind of totally derailed all of my studies, because I was really kind of focused on trying to find some planner peace throughout the month of February. And again, I think that really came down to, I was trying to find some way to get me back on track with my wellness practice, and I thought maybe the wellness planner would help with that, and it kind of just snowballed from there. Overall, though, it's been a really great experience, so we'll talk more about that when we get to March stuff. I did, however, really start diving into my Mysteries of Mary Tarot, which was high up on my study list, or my deck study list, and I've been working with that every week consistently since, so that's been really great. I suppose you could say, in a sense, I use it more as an oracle, but I don't do readings with it. I choose a card and it sits up every week, and I spend time working with that card throughout the week. So my deck purchases in February were all pretty much spur of the moment purchases, which was something that I was trying to avoid. So that was definitely somewhere where I kind of fell off the wagon with my depth year practice. So I purchased the Ember and Aura Tarot because, for one, it's been on my wish list for a really long time, and the creator had a sale, and so I kind of justified that. However, it was the second edition, which had the gilding and the borders, which I didn't really care for, and I kind of wish I got the first edition, but actually doing that allowed me to mod it, and I love the deck so much more. I did do that as a mod with me on this channel, if you want to check it out. But basically, I justified that one as it was on sale, and it's been on my wish list for a very long time. Another deck that I purchased was the Plant Spirit Oracle, and that is one that it's by the same creator as the Tarot of the Trees, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, that's really all there was to it. It's a gorgeous deck. I've shown it on, I think, my Facebook group and maybe on my channel once or twice, and it's just one that I just, in all honesty, I just totally fell in love with it. It's really, end of story. And then I purchased the Harmonious Mini Tarot because I wanted to make a tarot to go with my planner, which is kind of probably silly, but that was what I wanted to do. So I purchased it, and I modded it, and I modded my planner to fit it, and all kinds of crazy things. But it was a really fun creative project, and I've been enjoying working with it. So I only read one book in February, and that was When Mary Becomes Cosmic, and that was a really interesting book. It was, of course, about the idea of Mother Mary as an archetype for the divine cosmic mother. There was quite a bit of little, like, kind of overly preachy stuff mixed in, but there was some really great information mixed in with that as well, and I did really enjoy the book. So my struggles in February were really trying to find my planner piece. I way overbought planner supplies, which I talked about already, and that was really my biggest struggle, was trying to navigate whether I wanted to keep doing the bullet journaling, whether I wanted to do the happy planner stuff using all of that I bought, or maybe some combination thereof in between. My successes were definitely wrapped around my Mary studies, because that was continuing all along the way, and I've really been enjoying that practice. I feel like my tarot reading practice was also, had a really good run in the month of February. I was really focusing on those expanded readings, diving deep into the messages. That's something that I'm still really working with, and really just kind of taking it a little bit slower, which was something that I kind of focused in on February and continued on into March. So moving into March, with my studies, I really was just continuing that work with the studying about Mother Mary and the history and things of that nature. I continued working with my Mysteries of Mary tarot deck, as I said, as a weekly pull and a card to work with throughout the week. So the books I read in March kind of switched gears a little bit. I read Wild Mercy, which is a book kind of about the feminine mystic, which was really interesting because it talks about all kinds of different feminine mystics from all different kinds of traditions, goddesses and things of that nature, and it really focuses in on the feminine energy, which was really wonderful. And I also read The Mindful Witch, and it was it's just a really pretty book. It does have some very solid information in it. I do not identify as a witch, but I definitely pull some witchy things into my spiritual practice, so I do like to include those books into my reading as well. So deck purchases in March. So there was something going on. I kept seeing the Ophidio Rosa Tarot come up. It was showing up everywhere for me. and I kept feeling this draw to this deck. Now, mind you, this is a deck that I've had before, I didn't connect with, and I traded it. And so the fact that it kept reappearing all throughout the month of March, well, late February into the early part of March, I was like, what is going on? I kept thinking about this deck. I kept seeing it everywhere. Then finally, I had a dream about the deck. And for me, that's usually when like something inside is going, yep, you need to get this deck. The only other deck I think I've ever dreamed about is the Nicoletta Ciccoli Tarot. And I did end up getting that one after dream, after being totally resistant to that deck for quite a while. And now it's one of my favorite decks. So I was like, I'm gonna honor this little nudge inside of me that's telling me to get this deck. And I think that it's a deck that really requires slow work, and I'm thinking that maybe that's where I went wrong with it the first time. So now I'm doing a very slow, very in-depth deck study with this deck, and it's going much better this time around. I think the last time I tried to rush it, and I just don't think that that's a deck that you can rush. But on top of that, because I was buying the Ophidia Rosa Tarot, so I buy a lot of my indie decks from Phoenix and Lotus, and turns out, you know, if you buy 2 decks, the shipping's the same as buying 1. So I totally rationalized that to go ahead and get the Maiden Oracle by the same creator. And part of the reason I did that was because I was wanting to get the Pythia Botanica Oracle that's, again, by the same creator to use with the Ophidia Rosa Tarot, and that was currently out of print, and I was like, I couldn't find it anywhere. So I was like, I better get this Maiden Oracle because it's going to go out of print too, and then I'm not going to have it. So it was a total FOMO moment. Yep, I totally admit it. And then I got an email, like some weird universal thing going on here, some cosmic connection. About a week or 2 later, I got an email from the creator of the Ophidia Rosa, like just a mailer, like wasn't emailed to me personally, just I'm on the mailing list for that creator. And I got an email saying that pre-orders were open for the next edition of the Pythia Botanical. So I bought that too. So that's on pre-order for whenever it gets re-released. The other deck that I pre-ordered was the Creativity Oracle. It's one that I had seen at the Northwest Tarot Symposium, and when I got home, I had some money in Amazon, so I went ahead and ordered that one because, for one, I really like the artwork, and 2, it's an oracle all about creativity, which is just right up my alley. I did also get all of the Danielle Noel, or Noel, however you say her last name, all of her mass market oracles, and those were a gift. So I got the Work Your Light Oracle, the Starseed Oracle, and I'm looking because they're right here, a Yogic Path. And so I am actually really looking forward to working with those. But I do really love her decks, and like the Moonchild is one of my favorite decks. So I'm actually really excited to work with those 3 oracles as well. So my struggles in the month of March were really just the deck studies. I think part of the problem was, not really problem, but during the month of March, I was really diving deep into writing. So I was writing a lot. I was writing a guide for on my personal practice. I was creating videos, lots and lots of videos, and I was just really creating content. Like most of March was very much a creativity month for me. I was creating a ton of content for both my channels, and that pretty much consumed my everyday. And so that didn't really leave me a lot of time for study, which is fine. I mean, I'm the type of person that I believe that when those creative flows begin, like you need to ride those out for as long as they're with you. Because like most things, you know, they ebb and flow, and next month I could be totally creatively challenged. So I really kind of leaned into that, and that's most of what I spent my time doing throughout the month of March. So I didn't really do any sort of deck study besides just starting with my Ophidia Rosa. But again, like I said, that's going to be a really slow study, so it wasn't anything I was rushing through. So my successes were really with my wellness practice. That was like, besides the fact that I made a ton of content, which is great, that's a success in itself. But my wellness practice really sort of solidified during the month of March. And I really do think that that's because of the planner. So by having the planner, the wellness planner, I actually had like a checklist of things that I did every day, and I had a place to record them, and I did so very creatively. And so it really helped me to be excited to actually do the different parts of my wellness practice. And so I think that was a huge benefit. I finally kind of found some planner peace with my weekly planning and with my social media schedule, especially with 2 channels now. The happy planners for that work really great. I'm letting my wellness planner and my weekly, just my personal weekly planner be a really creative exploration, whereas my social media planner, like it's just straight up no nonsense planning. And I'm really enjoying the happy planner of having everything set in there in terms of the layout. As much as I like bullet journaling, sometimes I get like just a little bit, I get tired of remaking the spreads over and over again. And so I think I was really at that point at the beginning, or around the beginning of March, that I was kind of just done with the bullet journaling thing for a while. And so switching to the happy planner where everything's kind of already laid out for me was just a little bit, it just gave me some breathing space. I have a lot of things that I do in a day, like most people, and I don't always have time to create, big elaborate spreads. So they're there when I want to, but it's already enough of a structure that I don't have to. And that will ebb and flow for me, because there will be times where, I'll decide, like, I'm tired of doing the bullet journal. I don't want to make all these spreads all the time and redo the same thing every week. So I'll switch to a structured planner. And then at some point, usually I'll go, I'm tired of the structure. I want something more freeform and creative. And then I'll switch again. So that's just kind of how my planner process goes. Although I really think that I'll probably stick with my wellness planner, because that's the one that I'm really enjoying and that's really working out for me. If you want to find out more about all that stuff, you can check out my other channel where I talk a lot more about that kind of stuff. So that is really where I am at the end of this 3-month block of my first depth year. And I really am enjoying it overall. Definitely having some of those areas where I'm struggling, and definitely having areas where it's that focus in on certain things is really paying off. I'm really looking forward to expanding it throughout the year. I've said it, I think, in many videos that my practice as a whole is very seasonal. And so I'm curious to see that that seasonal shift in my depth years as well, because I think that that's probably going to show up in terms of what I do and what I get into during that time. So if you are doing a depth year, I'd love to know how yours is going. So please feel free to leave it in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video and will join me again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.